Um, should be live. Let me just double check everyone. I wish there was a better way. I'm probably such a noob at streaming that I don't know. There's probably a better way to find out if I'm live or not, like right away. But let's see here as we go to my channel. I'll make sure it's up there on the charts. Yep. All right, we're good. All right. Let me make sure. Oh, sweet. Yep, we are officially live. Welcome everybody to the charge again. This is your boy Bernie here, bringing you yet another live stream. I know that the NBA Finals is over, so I'm just trying to make sure that we get all of our fixes in when it comes to talking NBA live streaming. So let's talk about this kind of big news. You know, the title of this video is, of course, Anthony Davis is officially an NBA championship. Now what? You know, the people I'm wearing on my shirt, Kobe Bryant and Shaq, obviously won multiple titles together, won a three-peat together, and I'm thinking that maybe the Lakers could do the same thing. But obviously, I think with everything that's going on and the team that you saw in the finals compared to what you're going to get in the future, I think is going to be completely different. I think if the Lakers go next year with the same roster, I think they're in trouble. I'm not saying that these players are bad, not saying that these players are good, but I do think that they need to start making some moves, that is the LA Lakers, in order to get to an NBA championship once again. And the story we have here from Real GM is, of course, Anthony Davis not really sure what he's going to do when it comes to free agency. And guys, before we get started, remember to hit that like button. Also remember to hit that subscribe button if you are new to the channel. Of course, it helps us out when you hit that subscribe button, when you hit that like button, so we get more people watching the content each and every day. Looks like my stream's a little frozen. New computer coming in soon, guys. We won't have to worry about streaming lagging issues, so I'm happy about that. But let's kind of get started off with what Anthony Davis says, where he's not sure about how he'll approach the free agency this offseason. So as we kind of read the article, as I kind of exit out of... okay, cool. It gave me a little indication that it was lagging. But Anthony Davis has a player option for the 2020-2021 season with the Los Angeles Lakers, and is not yet clear how he'll approach his contract future. Davis, however, is widely expressed to remain with the Lakers for at least the remaining season of LeBron James's prime, which I think LeBron James himself said he had at least 2 to 3 good years. I think he may have said longer. I think he had a good 3 to 4 years. Let me see. Let me see here really quick. Remain playing. Trying to see here. No, not what I want. Not that. I think this is kind of, hopefully this might be where they talked about where he's at this point of his career. He wants to say maybe 3 to 4 years. Kind of saw LeBron James playing really well. But I think LeBron James did say he wanted to play about, another 3 to 4 years of basketball. I think he obviously wants to play with his son Bronny in the NBA, so it's obviously going to wait a little bit. Right now he's a sophomore this year, so 3 more years potentially, depending on how the NCAA does their thing. But it definitely could be plausible that LeBron James does play with the son, because I know that's the biggest reason why he wants to stay in LA, and the reason why he wants to keep playing until Bronny's about the age where he's about to play in the NBA. It'd be a really cool thing. Obviously, I think a lot of people and a lot of us are wondering if that could happen. But I think LeBron James is obviously going to be the model of consistency. So let's keep reading on what the article has to say. Davis is represented by Rich Paul of Clutch Sports, and the agency has been in the front runner of having LeBron James taking shorter contracts to maximize his earning power and also maintain control over his career trajectory. James can sign a max contract for 35% of the cap during the 2022 offseason when he reaches 10 years of service. During his post-championship, that's of course... James can sign in the 20... There's no way. I think they meant to say Davis, because obviously LeBron James is in year 17. I think how many years has Anthony Davis been in the league? He's been since 2011. Yeah, so I think they're talking about Anthony Davis in that aspect. So Anthony Davis could reach that 10-year service, and that's when he can earn his max money. But he says, first off, I had a great time in LA this first year. This has nothing but joy, nothing but amazement. Over the next couple of months, we'll figure out. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but that's why my agent, who is who he is, and we'll discuss the future in here on out. Me and Bron's relationship were always close. You guys know that. I got to LA, and he's the first one to text me, congratulate me, invite me to his house. We kind of celebrated then. We've grown over the past couple of full kind of year, especially here in the bubble, because we're around each other every day, so we'll be able to really connect off the floor in a way that might not have been a chance to do it when you're in LA. You got families and other stuff going on, so the real chance to real connect on the floor and really learn more about each other. Learning from him helped me in these moments, and I don't know if he'd learn anything from me. He kind of has seen it all, been through it all, but he's been around him, the way he acts and the way he leads. And I think that this is where I really like the way that Anthony Davis is approaching this, right? Anthony Davis is in control of his own destiny, he's in control of his own career, and I think LeBron James kind of set the path as to what he should go into, right? I think he's deciding, should I become a free agent? Should I become a superstar? Like what, or not a superstar, but like what? Should I follow in the same path as LeBron James? I think that this is going to be an interesting topic to kind of keep talking about as we continue to look at what Anthony Davis and LeBron James can do from here in the future. I do like the fact that Anthony Davis is keeping his options open. The one hesitant I have is because LeBron James is such good friends with the agent Rich Paul. Nothing wrong with that, but it just gets a little messy sometimes when it comes to teammates together. Obviously there's no jealousy, there's nothing involved that way, unlike Shaq and Kobe, which ultimately ended in a very sour note, unfortunately, because I think they could have won more championships together. But I do think that when you look at everything and we kind of see everything, I think Anthony Davis is going to stay another year. My question is going to be, as we look at the payroll, as I pull it up really quick, is, does Anthony Davis kind of stay together with this team and says, what, we'll run it back? Or do you think he kind of decides, what, let's see what we can do here? And so, like I said, I think if we look at the payroll and kind of look at teams and players that are kind of going to be on their, player contracts. Obviously, LeBron James has another year left before he decides to do that player option, which he can decline or accept. He's probably going to decline that because I think the Lakers or whoever team he wants to go to will probably pay that money. But I think he still has 3 to 5. I think he still got 3 years left of his prime. And that's just, and that's kind of crazy to think about, right? I mean, LeBron James obviously now is going to be more picking and choosing his spots, which is nothing wrong with that. I think that's kind of the reality of LeBron James at this point of his career. So, he obviously has to adjust. He's not the same 25-year-old kid. He's not the same, 18-year-old kid coming into the league, right? He's got to maintain himself. He's got to pace himself. I mean, that's why we saw in some of the finals games where he's kind of, laying off a little bit, and then sometimes he'll go and attack. So, kind of looking at the roster here, I think Caldwell Pope is obviously going to decline this player option. He obviously proved himself to be a really good player after I've been slating him for months. But, credit where's credit's due. Contavious Caldwell Pope, along with Lethal Shooter and whoever other trainers he's been working with, definitely got his jump shot right. And it's one of those things where I'm very impressed with the way that Contavious Caldwell Pope has played, especially in the bubble. At the beginning, it was a little nerve-wracking. Lakers fans and LeBron fans were really nervous about having Untitled Caldwell Pope, but he did a really good job, and I'm glad that he was able to continue to be successful in the bubble and especially in the playoffs when it comes to winning the championship. I think one player they're going to look at to get rid of is Kyle Kuzma. I think with Kyle Kuzma, I think it's time for him to go. I think you can have some other pieces here to trade as well, but I think you can convince a Kyle Kuzma and maybe a couple first-round picks, depending on how many you have. But I do believe that you should be trading away Kyle Kuzma. I just think Kyle Kuzma, he went to my alum, he went to the University of Utah, so I have respect for him in that aspect. And I have respect for him as a champion. You can't discredit Kyle Kuzma for the work he put in this season. But I just think for the Lakers, in order to achieve and maintain these next couple of years, especially with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, still playing under their contracts, I think you have to get a better player. I mean, Kuzma was supposed to be your third star player, and ultimately it just didn't pan out. It should have been a lot better. It should have been a player where he really should have been able to carry, but ultimately it became Caldwell Pope. Caldwell Pope is 27, still in his prime, still working on his three-point shot, but ultimately where I get kind of worried is the fact that I need Kyle Kuzma to take that next step. Right now, Kyle Kuzma is kind of like, I feel like he's here. First season he was here, and then that's about where he stayed, or he even got lower. I think that Kyle Kuzma at times can be frustrating to Lakers fans because we see that he has the potential to be good, but there's some times where you're just like, come on, Kuzma, I need you to play just a little bit better. And so it's kind of frustrating to see that. It's kind of frustrating to know that we could get a much better Kyle Kuzma out there, but ultimately it's just not the Kyle Kuzma that they were expecting when they made that big trade to bring in Anthony Davis, and they decided to keep Kyle Kuzma instead of giving away and gave away Brandon Ingram, which I think the Pelicans would even want Brandon Ingram anyway. They were keen on keeping him. But let's kind of look at another story here. I think another interesting one, of course, is going to be, let's see here. No, where is it? I think this one is a very underrated story that we have to talk about, and that's, of course, LeBron James introducing Anthony Davis to his nutrition plan. This is what you call ultimate respect, and this is what you call passing the torch, or teaching the young bucks and teaching the young generation new things about what they can do for their future bodies. I mean, Anthony Davis, obviously, when we get older, we obviously don't really have that elasticity that we used to have, and it takes our body to recover longer. But LeBron James ultimately brought in a very good piece for Anthony Davis, and that's, of course, helping him with a nutrition plan, also with treatment. As we read the article from Yahoo Sports from Chris Haynes, Anthony Davis has battled nagging injuries throughout his career, which LeBron has tried to help him with since his trade to Los Angeles. James introduced him to his nutrition plan and recommended that he receive preventive maintenance treatment on a regular basis. Davis has also sought to reduce the number of times he falls on the floor when attacking the basket. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing that we saw in the playoffs. And that's kind of the biggest thing that we saw basically this whole series. Basically, this whole playoff run was just Anthony Davis on the floor. I think hopefully as Anthony Davis continues to get older, as he continues to get wiser, as he continues to work on his game, I'm hoping that we see a situation where Anthony Davis is working on his body and not ending up on the floor. It kind of slated Caruso because of that flop that he had, which ended up hurting Anthony Davis, and that's why I was really upset with Caruso at that point. But Davis also has to be smarter. There's some times where I do feel like he's on the floor, but it is what it is. I think that he could do a much better job. Hey, Yoy, how you doing, man? Come home to AD. I mean, maybe Chicago might be a place. I mean, if it's not LA, there's a couple of destinations that I think Anthony Davis could go. But before we talk about that, let's continue talking about this nutrition plan because I think this is going to be a tremendous help for Anthony Davis. I think the biggest problem with big men, people that are 6'10" and higher, or taller, I should say, is the knees and the feet. That's kind of been the biggest issue for guys like Joel Embiid, guys like Karl-Anthony Towns. Yao Ming also had that issue, and you see many guys have that issue. We're seeing Anthony Davis have that issue as well. Luckily, Giannis has not had that issue, but it's kind of frustrating if you're a big man and you're just always in pain with your knees and your feet because you're so tall. It hurts. I get it. And so I'm glad that he's able to take care of his body and work on getting better in that aspect. So Anthony Davis, hopefully this nutrition plan helps, and hopefully you can get going. But Eoy, welcome to the Charge once again. How are you doing, man? It's been a minute. How do you feel about the NBA Finals? I know that we haven't talked in a minute, so let me know what you thought about the NBA Finals. But I do like the idea of Anthony Davis returning to Chicago, to his hometown. But ultimately, I think he's going to stay in LA. I would love him to kind of venture out and do his own thing, but I think it's safer. And obviously with Rich Paul being the client of Anthony Davis, obviously LeBron James is going to have a little bit more say as to where. Not saying Anthony Davis doesn't have a choice in where he goes, but I do think that he will sway him in a persuasion to stay in LA and try and win another championship. I just think that they're going to have to make some trades because I think this roster, although it's a good roster, I think many of these players would like to either get a bigger contract or, it's kind of they hit their ceiling. I think it's time to trade and get better. I think every roster that ever won a championship, you kind of see a progression as they got better each and every year, and they got better players or better role players to fit their system and their scheme. You saw that with the LA Lakers when they won their three-peat with Shaq and Kobe. You saw that when they won 2 championships with Powell and Kobe. You saw that with the Boston Celtics, even though they didn't win the finals, and that was that 2010 season where they played the Lakers again, they still did a really good job at getting another person to come in. So, it is what it is at this point. I do like the fact that Anthony Davis will have another chance to win another championship. I think Anthony Davis is a walking bucket. I think his jump shot is too clean to not get him to another championship spot. But again, guys, I think this is going to be a fun one to watch. I think it's going to be an interesting one to watch as we continue to see Anthony Davis kind of move on in his career. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in the stream. I mean, Eloy kind of brought up a good point about coming home to Chicago, kind of playing with Kobe. Eloy, what do you make of Kobe White? I mean, I watched him a little bit in college, and I watched a little bit of the Chicago Bulls. I'm not sure if I'm sold on Kobe White just yet. I mean, what's kind of his gimmick to you? Do you think he's like a 3-point shooter, more of a facilitator? Like, what is Kobe White to you? I watched him in college, and I wasn't really that impressed with him. And so I'd like to know your opinion on that. Zach LaVine is from the Seattle area. I watched him play. He played at Bothell, which actually lived pretty close to Bothell. But, and LaVine, I'm not also, again, I think he needs to work on the IQ. I think he's the same IQ as Kuzma in terms of I think that he could do a lot better job of being in the film room and studying those film and studying the plays and really analyzing the defense, because I think there's sometimes where he just goes head on and uses his pure athleticism and his pure talent to get him to the bucket and score points. But I think if he was able to add the IQ part of his game, I think Zach LaVine would be a much better player. And he kind of admitted it earlier in his career. So, that's kind of a thing where I don't know if Anthony Davis would give up being with LeBron James and potentially winning another championship to play and have a project with LaVine and Kobe White. Even though I think Kobe White's a good player, I just don't think that he'll want that sort of rebuild project, in my opinion. Let's see here. Let's see if there's any other kind of news. We got Mark Cuban talking about the league stuff. Not sure about that. We'll kind of skip that for there. Jeff Van Gundy to interview with the Rockets. I mean, this is going to be, kind of moving on from the Anthony Davis topic and going more towards a different topic. And that's, of course, Jeff Van Gundy to interview with the Rockets on Wednesday. I'm not really sure about Jeff Van Gundy going back to Houston. I thought that, he did okay. I think the Rockets should look at either a young coach or, if Tyronn Lue is available for the position, which it says here he's going to interview on Monday. I think Tyronn Lue has his pick of the litter since winning a championship. I think he could either stay in LA and play with the Clippers and try and build that team, or he could go to Houston where he has less pressure, I would say, compared to LA Clippers. Because I do believe that the LA Clippers is the most pressured franchise right now, because the Lakers won their championship. Now it's about, can the other teams win their championship? I mean, that's kind of the biggest talking point about this franchise. That's the biggest talking point for the LA Clippers coming into next season. I think it's going to be the most pressured franchise to take over. And I feel like, I don't know if Tyronn Lue wants that pressure just due to the heart concerns. I know he had a lot of heart problems, especially in that year that they went to the finals and ultimately lost to the Warriors. And I don't know if Tyronn Lue wants to go through that process yet again. And we kind of look here to see what else we can talk about. Because I think Jeff Van Gundy, I'm not really sold as him as a commentator for the NBA, for ESPN. He's just absolutely horrible. I hope that, honestly, this would be a blessing in disguise if he was able to kind of go there and not do that. Let's kind of read this story as well. So it looks like the NBA is going to be released, eliminating many restrictions on in-person interviews from October 16th to November 16th. Teams may schedule 10 visits up to 4.5 hours with draft-eligible players for the purpose of in-person interviews, evaluations, medicals, and all that other stuff. So this is going to be good because we know that Lonzo Ball is definitely, or LaMelo, I should say, is going to be a top-rated draft pick. The question is, will he be the number one draft pick? And we will continue discussing that. We'll do a different live stream for that. Excuse me just 1 second, guys. Oops. Sorry about that, guys. For some reason, my computer is just acting so crazy. Let me see if... Nope. Okay, there we go. Different scenes. Sorry you guys had to see that. I'll try and get better at this live stream as we continue going on. But the good news is that we will have a live stream for the NBA draft and kind of the prospects coming up. So look out for that. Me and my boy Brad will definitely be on live stream talking about that and discussing it as we kind of continue looking to see what players and what teammates and who is going to be the biggest contributor. What's this draft class looking like? So we will see that relatively soon as we continue to watch here on out. But kind of looking at more stories, we saw James Wiseman be the safest pick in the draft. We see the Mavericks will be at the head of the line. This is kind of an interesting one, it looks like. The Dallas Mavericks are widely expected to be preserving their cap space for the 2021 free agency to attain Giannis Antetokounmpo. A team with Porzingis, Antetokounmpo, and Luka, the international squad, that actually would be kind of cool. And hopefully LeBron James can have a good squad so that way they can kind of compete with them. But this would be a tremendous squad. I think that if we were to look at everything and kind of line everything up, if Giannis was able to be a Dallas Maverick, I think it would be a good fit for him. I mean, you have a guy that can handle the rock, can post up, can do a lot of things inside, just still needs to work on that jump shot. But you have guys like Luka Doncic, you have guys like Kristaps Porzingis who stretch out the floor, which means that it allows Giannis to kind of have more of that ball handling responsibility. Meanwhile, you can have Luka be kind of more of a shooter, more of a driver and attacker off the drive and catch from Giannis passing him the rock from anywhere on the court. Kristaps can stretch the floor. So I think that is going to be an interesting kind of team to look out for as we see Giannis try and acquire and try to become the next superstar for his team. But I think that's going to be an interesting kind of conversation to have in the future, is to see whether or not Giannis Antetokounmpo could be a future NBA Mavericks player. It would be very interesting. And it would be a lot of fun to kind of watch that. Let's see here. We kind of see Stan Van Gundy, Ty Lue, finalist for the Pelicans job. But kind of going back to the Anthony Davis topic and, kind of looking at Anthony Davis, what the main video of this was about, right? Anthony Davis wins a championship. He did a really good job. I thought that defensively, he was the best player on the team, was able to command the defense. And the cool thing about it is that he didn't even have to do too much in terms of worrying about the shooter and Bam Adebayo. They obviously won the games where Bam Adebayo was not playing. And I thought, he played in game 5, I guess. But I would credit the last 2 wins, or the last win, to Kelly Olynyk and Miles Leonard, who stretched the floor. And I would love to see that from Bam Adebayo going forward. But we're not here to talk about Bam Adebayo. We're here to talk about what Anthony Davis could do. And I do think that Anthony Davis could do a really good job here and really kind of contribute and do many things to really help out the team. And we'll kind of discuss that in a little bit. But Anthony Davis, like I said, a really good player, did a tremendous job on defense. And I think that's the reason why I think this team is going to do so well next year. I think defensively, LeBron James has never played with a big man that is this skilled, this talented, offensively and defensively. I would say Chris Bosh, offensively, maybe about the same, but nowhere near on the level of an Anthony Davis, who does it on both ends and is really a top 2, top 3 player in the league. I think he really surpassed a lot of players this offseason, this kind of NBA bubble. Just due to the fact that he's able to, one, attack the rim and also shoot the ball, but also the fact that he's able to play defense. And that's something, like I said, LeBron James has not had in a very long time, as someone defensively who is reliable, as he once was back in his like super prime, where he was like defensively the best player in the league defensively. And it's sad that he never won a defensive player of the year. But nevertheless, I do expect that the Lakers will be back in the NBA finals once again. They're obviously going to have to make some adjustments. They're obviously going to have to do some stuff. We'll see what happens with Dwight Howard. Is he going to take a re-sign? Caruso obviously going to be there for another year. But I do think that they need to move Kyle Kuzma. And I think that Bradley Beal would be a perfect fit for this team. I think if they were able to get Bradley Beal, not sure what it would take to get him. But maybe it takes Clutch Sports to come in there and become his agent. But I would love Bradley Beal to be part of this team. I mean, let's kind of look at some potential Potential Laker players. Let's see here. Did I spell potential wrong? See kind of some potential Lakers trades for what happens, kind of postseason trades, what they're looking for here. I think one player, Reggie Jackson, no. What is this? I do think that Joe Harris would actually be a good addition. I don't know what Joe Harris's contract situation is. I think he signed a new one, actually, so he should be in Brooklyn for a while. But I do think that Joe Harris would be a great addition. Obviously, he's got, 2 more? Actually, he is an unrestricted free agent at this point of his career. I do believe so. Yep. Unrestricted free agent. I think that maybe what they should be looking at is going to get Joe Harris as a shooting guard. I think he's such a reliable shooter, and I think that it will do such a tremendous job for you. So I think you should really look at Joe Harris being part of that situation for the LA Lakers. I think that his three-point shooting is a lot better than what they had on the team. Obviously, Bradley Beal, a good player. Sorry, not Bradley Beal. Avery Bradley, a good player. You have Caruso, who's also a good player, but no one as consistently three-point shooting-wise as Joe Harris. And I think if Joe Harris wants a ring, I think that he joins that team. And I don't think he's a guy that, the cool thing about Joe Harris is that he's not demanding of the ball, and I think he wants to win. He's from the Washington area, Washington State, that is. And Chelan, I believe, is where he played. Chelan High School. I think that he would be a tremendous fit there, and I think that he would actually do a really good job of fitting perfectly when it comes to talking about perfect fits for the LA Lakers. As we kind of look at some free agents as who else they could add, Gordon Hayward, no. Paul Millsap, no. I think he's not going to get that contract. Otto Porter Jr., if he takes a massive pay cut. Nicholas Batum could be another player that could take a massive pay cut as well. But there's no one really in free agency that could, that screams like Lakers should sign him right away besides him. I mean, Bogdanovich, I believe this is the Sacramento Kings guy. I think he's a restricted free agent. I think that he would have been a good fit. I think he would have been a better fit than Kyle Kuzma, in my opinion. They need to sign Contavious Caldwell-Pope, but I think that they really should look at Joe Harris, as he only got $8 million last year. I think he could definitely sign him to at least a 5 or, honestly, relatively the same kind of contract that he has right now. I think that he would be a great player to add as we kind of continue looking at to see who else. Frank the Tank, obviously not. Stanley Johnson, no. Rajon Rondo, they should look at re-signing him. Not sure what he would take. But I do believe that of all these guys, I think that they really should look at Joe Harris. I think that Joe Harris is a really good player. I think he could do a really good job for this team. Three-point shooting wise, he's one of the best three-point shooters in the league. And I think that the Lakers definitely are going to need that for next year. We saw how inconsistent when their three-point shooting is, that they don't win games. And so you want a consistent guy. So we'll see if Joe Harris will be able to kind of, whether he takes a pay cut, whether, something happens in that situation. But I would love Joe Harris to be part of the squad. I think Joe Harris would be a tremendous kind of position as they kind of continue looking for trades. I mean, let's kind of see who's going to be available in the 2021 free agency class, because that's the big one. I feel like that's the one that everyone's kind of looking forward to as we kind of look to see who's going to be there. Update for me, please. A huge amount of players. It's kind of crazy that Kawhi Leonard gave up an opportunity to not play with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, but I think that for the sake of everyone, I think that was probably best for everybody. I think for LeBron James is best because he doesn't have to share the spotlight with Kawhi Leonard. It was best for the Clippers because they actually got their player, and AD, becomes the number 2 guy instead of trying to be the number 3 guy to this 3-man squad. Giannis is also going to be a free agent. That could be another player. Victor Oladipo. Like, this draft class is so good, free agency class is so good that I think that you could see a lot of movement coming to LA relatively soon, as LeBron James probably makes his final push in LA with one of these players going to be signing for him. And we'll see what happens for LeBron James's future as he becomes a free agent. after this season. I think in the 2021 he's going to be a player option, so we'll see if he keeps it or if he decides to let it go. But I do think that in order for the LA Lakers to win another one, they do need to make some roster moves, and I think that ultimately, if the Lakers want to play the same way and kind of want to continue to be a successful organization and franchise and continue what they're winning and what they're doing, I do believe that they need to head in the direction of getting Joe Harris on this team. I'm going to keep pushing for it because I think that he could be a tremendous key player for this team. The question is going to be, how much money does he want? Are teams are going to be willing, because I know that the Nets should be looking at re-signing him. It would be foolish for them not to, especially when you got guys like KD and Kyrie, and you got a spot-up shooter like Joe Harris. But I think Joe Harris looks so much better in the purple and gold. And we'll kind of see, and we'll kind of talk about the Brooklyn Nets, I should say, not New York Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, and see what their situation's going with. I kind of want to do an individual breakdown of each team, and maybe we'll start. Ooh, shoot, I almost spilled my tea. Maybe we'll start relatively soon on that sort of series. You know, we have plenty of time. We have 32 teams to kind of talk about, and we'll kind of talk about it each and every time. I kind of want to do what I did for my Fixer Upper series, but do a live stream about it, you know, kind of talk about it, let people in the chat chime in on what they think could be better for each and every team that we talk about. But other than that, guys, I think that's going to do it here for the Charge. I know this was kind of a short stream and kind of planned to kind of talk about Anthony Davis. But I do like the fact that Anthony Davis, one, has LeBron James' nutrition plan and healing regimen or training regimen to make sure that he kind of prevents those big injuries. I also love the fact that Anthony Davis is kind of not sure what he's going to do right now, because I think it allows him to kind of think about what he can do, what he can't do. And that's kind of the big talking points out of today's live stream, is just Anthony Davis has basically the whole world in front of him. He could decide to stay in LA, or he can decide to be his own man on a different team. And I think that he won't make a wrong decision either way. But I think that in order to win another championship, they obviously should stay in LA, because I do believe that that's the best chance that not only LeBron, but Anthony Davis has of winning. They're just going to have to make some roster moves and trade for Bradley Beal. I think Bradley Beal, to me, is the clear front runner as to who they should get, unless they want to get some other star type of player that is not really going to take up much of the shine. Then I think that that's kind of the direction they should go in. But anyway, guys, thank you once again for joining me here on The Charge. Really appreciate every one of you that came out to watch this stream. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys make of Anthony Davis. Should he stay in LA? Should he go? What should the Lakers do to make sure that they have enough pieces to go for another run at another championship? But anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Thank you once again for joining me, and we'll catch you